So in terms of what you need to do, you do need to make sure you keep your online details up to date. So again, now, unfortunately for NLIS, we don't have a requirement to go in every 3 years and update your accreditation. So you won't get reminders to update your details. And a lot of people's details in the NLIS program are really out of date, especially if you created your account a long time ago. And if you don't have an account, I really encourage you to have one, because while you might think, well, someone else does the transfers for me, as in an agent, or, you know, someone else is doing my transfers, I don't need an account because I'm not doing them. You really do need an account so you can make sure that they are happening, because if you, as I said, if you're LPA audited, they will be looking at your NLIS records. And if you've left it up to someone else to manage, then when when there's, you know, problems, you're the one who has to fix it. So I really encourage you to have an account. And also you need to make sure your PIC details online are up to date with NRE Tasmania, including your stock holdings. You need to ensure your responsible person is authorised for NLIS tags so that you can order your tags, and you need to order and use NLIS tags for every animal on your PIC before it leaves your PIC. So an animal can't leave a PIC without an NLIS tag, unless there are, I think, exemptions for bobby calves going to slaughter. But for all other livestock, you need to make sure they're tagged. You need to record the movements of livestock in the NLIS database, and in Tasmania, you have 7 days to do that. And you need to regularly compare your records to the database to make sure the transfers are completed. Now, we do recommend doing a PIC reconciliation, which means looking at what the database says you know, what tags you have assigned to you and what movements have happened off your PIC and what your records say. And it's quite a detailed process for how to do that in this webinar, but it's one of the things we can definitely come back and do some follow-up training with you guys if that's something you'd like to do. And so, as I said, all animals must be identified with the tag or device before moving, and once tagged, that should remain with the animal for life. Dairy cattle can be tagged with, well, all dairy cattle, adult dairy cattle must be tagged with an electronic RFID or EID device. It can be visually tagged only if consigned direct to slaughter. If a tag falls out, they need to be tagged with a post-breeder device if they're no longer on their property of birth. So a post-breeder device for cattle is orange, so it's a different colour, and it indicates that they've lost their lifetime traceability because they've lost their original tag from their place of birth. So all animals must be tagged with a breeder tag, which is white, from their place of birth, and then if they leave their place of tag, they must be tagged with an orange tag. And it's really important you keep a supply of replacement tags. And I would recommend replacing them as soon as you see they're missing. Often, you know, once you're loading them up onto the truck, it's sort of too late. And if you're sending them to the sale yards, you will be charged for a replacement tag. And then it gets flagged as an NLIS non-compliance. So that can be part of, you know, instigating a targeted audit. Integrity insights on the screen. If you're having issues with your tags, in first instance, contact your supplier. So if they're not reading or they're falling out or if you've got any issues with them. But we also have a device complaint form that you can access off our website and submit to ISC, so we can investigate that tag manufacturer and just follow up with them and say, hey, complaints about this tag, you know, what are you doing to manage that? In Tasmania, there's a Tasmanian only exemption. So bobby calves, if transferred to another property, they must have the electronic tag. And I guess we're just, NRE just really wanted to emphasize exemption of putting tags in bobby calves only applies when they go to slaughter. So if you're moving calves from one property to another property, they must have the electronic tag. So I'm not, you know, 100% sure of how everyone in dairies are using their NLIS tags. And I know there's some issues with readers and incompatibility, but within the beef or the red meat industry, we really encourage producers to make the most of the tags and linking that data into any other electronic systems that they use, so that you can get the most value out of, you know, matching data and to their progeny and to their performance. So there, you know, it does give you a lot of possibilities if you can make that information work for you. So when you're wanting to start better managing your NLIS account, the first thing you need to think about is, what does the database know about your pig? Because everything that's ever happened should have happened on the database as well. So all the transfers, all the tag purchases, all of those things are logged in your account. So the important thing is to have a look and see, what does the database know about me? Is it different to what it should be? And then you need to start thinking about doing a PIC reconciliation. So before you even transfer anything on or off, is what you have on your PIC accurate? Do you have any devices with statuses? If you do, then this can cause marketing issues. If there's tags on your if there's animals on your PIC that have tags that have statuses attached to them, then you need to know that. Our integrity insight is that you run an active devices on PIC report, and we'll have a link to some very simple videos that show you how to do this, and help tools. And that can tell you devices the database has recorded against your PIC. And if you run an active devices on PIC report and the number it says is much higher than the actual devices you have, remembering that that includes tags that you have in animals' ears plus tags, spare tags you have in the cupboard, they're all counted as being assigned to your PIC, then you should think about doing a PIC reconciliation. As I said, it's really important to have an account. So every time a transfer on or off has been completed, go in and have a look and make sure it was the right number of tags and it was from the right PIC to the right PIC. You will get errors, warning emails if things are not happening correctly. And I know some people get a bit overwhelmed, because if there is some major issues with your NLIS account, you might be getting these regularly and you just don't know what to do with them, so you ignore them. So I really encourage you not to ignore them. It's really important that you get things sorted out. And then when you get a warning email, it will only happen occasionally, and then you know that you need to investigate. So if you're getting them so often that you've just given up on trying to see what's wrong, that is a really good, that's really important that we sort of get in there and have a look at why that's happening and trying to fix it up, so that when you do get a warning email, it's unusual, and then you will make sure you go and investigate it. If you have livestock on your PIC that you've purchased from somewhere else, so they've been transferred to your PIC, before you move them off your PIC, complete a beast inquiry, and we have some resources to help you do this, to check their tags to make sure they're actually registered to your PIC. Because if they're not registered to your PIC and you go and then transfer them off, or whoever purchases them transfers them off, that's going to create an NLIS warning, because you're trying to transfer tags that aren't registered to your PIC. So if you do it before they're going to be moved, you can have time to actually sort that out.
Jo, just before we move on to this next slide, if you could just go back one.
Oops, sorry.
It's all right. We just have another quick poll question for you guys, and this one's a bit of a knowledge tester. So this one will come up on your screen now. So the question should say, who is responsible for doing a transfer on the NLIS database when selling livestock from one property to another? Is it the receiver/buyer, online selling platform, stock agent, or vendor/seller? If you guys could select the answer that you think is correct, I'll give you guys a few seconds to all do that. Still got a couple more people that need to answer. Right, I might pull it up there. So, Jo, do you mind enlightening us? Who is responsible for doing a transfer on the NLIS database?
And yes, I did forget to not jump to the next slide where the answer is. So I will jump to the next slide where the answer is. And the receiver of the livestock is responsible for completing the transfer. The sender or the seller of the livestock can, but then that under legislation, they're not responsible party. So I guess that's really important for property to property transfers. So if you're purchasing livestock not through a sale yards, because sale yards are responsible for doing transfers, if you're purchasing directly from another producer, then you need to make sure the transfer is being done. If an agent's been involved and the agent said to you, I'll do the transfer, that's great, but ask them for the upload ID. because that is a number that's generated when they complete the transfer. Ask them for that, and you can log in and you can have a look at that and make sure that if 20 head were coming to your pick, that 20 head are in that upload ID. That it is your responsibility. So if you're being audited, it's no, you can't just say, oh, well, your agent stuffed up, because it's your job to make sure the agent did it correctly. It's important that you know that selling platforms like Auction Plus, they don't do the transfers. They're not agencies. They, you are still, if you're purchasing to Auction Plus and it's coming directly to your property, then you need to, again, make sure that the transfer is done. If you send livestock to a processor like a Meatworks, they will complete the transfer, but it's still, and as I said, sale yards are responsible for completing transfers, but it's still really good to check, because mistakes can happen, and then the mistakes sit out and you get the emails. And as I said, and I've said many times, if you have an LPA audit, they will be checking your transfers. So if you buy and sell, be really vigilant, because that's likely when things go wrong. To set up an NLIS account, if you don't already have one, you need to go to the NLIS website and click register, and then enter the details needed to establish the account. Now, if you talk to Andrea and the people at NRE, then you will be have already set up your name and your association with the PIC. A nice smooth process of creating an NLIS account. If the PIC isn't actually already owned by you, if you've got third-party access to a PIC, or if it's for your own PIC, then your name should be the name that's against that PIC in the PIC register, and you can set that up. So as I said, if you have animals on multiple PICs and you've talked to NRE and they are aware and they've added you to the PIC register for those other PICs, then when you set up an NLIS account, or when you want to add those PICs to your account, then the customer service team and IC can do that, because when they look at the PIC register, your name is there, and they can add these multiple PICs to your NLIS account, giving you that flexibility to be able to do the transfers between PICs. Because if you don't have that PIC on your NLIS account, you can't transfer off that PIC. Only people that have access to, you can transfer onto it because from your PIC, but you can't transfer off a PIC unless it's linked to your account. Once you submit your request, it has to be approved by your state or territory department. So that's why it's so important to make sure the PIC register details are correct, because they won't issue you with an account unless you're named on the PIC register. So what are the key actions as a producer that you need to do on the database? Generally, they are moving livestock onto a PIC, because that's your responsibility, but you might also move livestock off a PIC, especially if you have livestock on multiple PICs and you need to transfer them between PICs. And there's two ways you can do that. One is by typing in the RFID or the visual ID numbers off the tags, or you can upload a file, which is the file generated by a wand or reader. Or if you're really lucky, you might already have some software that does that for you. So you might have some on-farm software that manages your NLIS transfers. Whatever method you use, you need to check that those transfers have been completed and record that upload ID. Now, if you're doing this in conjunction with a national vendor declaration, so you've purchased livestock from someone else, they've come from someone else's property to your property, you need to do the NLIS transfer. You've got the NVD sitting there on the desk. When you complete that transfer, write the upload ID on the national vendor declaration. So if you get audited and they say, oh, I want to see the details for this livestock coming on, you've got the NVD and you've got the upload ID sitting right there. You can conduct a transfer correction, but only if it's you can only correct a transfer if it's the last transfer that you did. So if there's other errors back, you've done them, it's back a few transactions, then you would need to call the customer service desk, or you could talk to and say, I've got a problem here, can you help me fix it up? There's a whole lot of reports you can run in the NLIS database that help you work out, what tags are allocated to you. You can look at the transfers that have been done. and you can complete a PIC reconciliation, and that is a great process to go through. It's a bit of work, but once you've done it once and then you're vigilant at checking all the transfers, then you can count really tidy from then on. So we'd really like to help you guys out if you do want to learn how to do a PIC reconciliation, and that's one of the things we'll do as a follow-up training from this webinar. We have spent a bit of time last year, in the last 2 years, creating some how-to guides to help people navigate the database. And so the how-to guides, the best way to access them is on the website. There's a selection process you can go through to say exactly what you want, what you're looking for. And then when you get to the page that you need, so for example, it might be how to search a PIC, be a little video you can watch. There'll be a PDF flyer that you can download and look at or print out if you need to. And then there'll be just web text so you can read it through on the page. So whatever preference you have for, understanding this information, we've tried to cater for that. There is training available. I just will bring to your attention that AgVic are running NLIS workshops. And yeah, I'm not sure if it's just for Victorian producers, but they do run some really good NLIS workshops. I'm pretty sure that they're happy for anyone to join in, and you can have a look at how, they run through just the basics of how to do a transfer. But we're also very keen to host a workshop for you guys if you specifically want to have a look at some of these NLIS activities.